dates that they choose to publish are the ones that fit the evolution theory. I don't know about a conspiracy. I don't know if there's a smoke-filled room of professors who are deciding to support evolution, but I think there is a conspiracy with Satan versus God. And I think Satan wants people to believe his lie, that evolution is true and how we got here, so they won't find the Savior. And I must apologize, Dr. Moore. You mentioned that, I don't know if anybody caught the comment, the first thing you started with, this is why you drifted from Christianity years ago. If my demeanor has come across as offensive to you, I do apologize. This subject is near and dear to my heart. And I do get very emotional about this. And I'm sorry, you are not the enemy, okay? I would love to see you converted. I told you that on the phone. And I'll close here. I think you have been blinded into seeing evidence for microevolution, and somebody somewhere taught you that this proves macroevolution, and you believed it. And I don't know why, but I think I would like to convert you from that. And I think you have a profound influence on hundreds or maybe thousands of students over your career here, and which is great if you're teaching them the truth. But if you're spreading a false religion, then yes, I do get emotional about that when I have to pay for it. I'm sorry about that, but I do apologize.
Let me just start by just talking a little bit about radiometric dating, but I want to do so in a little bit more general sense. And that is that carbon dating is actually one of several methodologies. It's the one that's used to date most recent fossil remains. And it is based on concepts of radioactive decay and the atomic theory, which tell us, among other things, that decay rates are constant, and this has, of course, been tested experimentally jillions of times, I suppose. But let me come back to the example that I cited earlier, the moon rock that was divided into 9 samples and sent to 9 different laboratories, which really wasn't. You can't hear me? When you read those 9 papers, and mind you, I'm not a geophysicist, but I do read the papers as someone who knows the scientific method. I know a good scientific paper when I see it. That first of all, this was sort of an odd set of papers in that they were the first reports of lunar rock dates. And one of the interesting aspects of it was that the papers came out of a conference that was held where each of the authors came to the conference with their manuscript written, with their specimens dated, and they hadn't seen one another's data prior to that they came blind, essentially. It was a blind experiment. And there was more than one specimen, of course. There were some number of kilograms total and a large number of specimens dated in the 9 different laboratories, usually by several methods in each laboratory. And if you read those papers, as I do as a scientist but not a specialist in the area, there is a striking consistency in the dates that come out of them. And that is that there were 2 populations of rocks collected, essentially. One dates at about 4.6 or 4.7 billion years, and the other somewhat younger, around 3.6 or 3.7. And the interpretation of the lunar geologists of this was that the older date, 4.6, represents the age of the formation of the moon, the original formation, and the younger date represents the time of the formation of the Sea of Tranquility, where the stones were collected. But the overwhelming sense I had was that the conclusions were really remarkably consistent. And if you go to the library and read the literature on radiometric dating, first of all, be prepared to spend a lot of time there. It's a huge literature, and it's very complex. And it'll take you a long time to work your way through it. But it is remarkably consistent, the dates that come from different methods. It is also true that there are bogus dates, and in most instances, it's known precisely why the dates are bogus. Radiometric dating of almost virtually every sort does not work well with metamorphic rocks, for example, the potassium-argon method. And that's because as the rock metamorphoses, the argon escapes, and you end up with a bogus date. In a methodological sense, I reminded my own research, which involves DNA sequencing, which is a remarkably reliable technique. We use a method called the polymerase chain reaction, and then which actually amplifies the specific gene we're interested in, and then we sequence it by a method called the dideoxy terminator method. And we take extraordinary precautions when we're in the laboratory. First of all, it takes a long time to reach the level of technical skill that allows you to do this. It takes our students have completed their undergraduate work. They're usually well into their doctoral programs before they begin to sort of come to grips with the theory of this. But in any event, the results we get are very reliable. But occasionally, we get a bad sequence. And the reason we get a bad sequence is that the polymerase chain reaction, which was used, I would imagine, to sequence Monica Lewinsky's dress, among other things, is a remarkably powerful method. It starts out literally, or can, with a single gene and amplify it up to a concentration where you can actually do chemistry on it in the laboratory. And as a result of that, it is easy to contaminate a sample. This is what a lot of the argumentation in the O.J. Simpson trial swirled around, was the potential of contamination of the polymerase chain reaction. And in my own area, I can even point to 2 or 3 examples in the literature published in scientific journals of bad sequences. It happens. It's just the way technology is. But that doesn't mitigate the fact that overwhelmingly the polymerase chain reaction works, and it proved to be the smoking gun evidence, as you know, for Bill Clinton. So the same argument in the broader philosophical context, when you look at the philosophy of science, applies to all the dating methods. If you take the science seriously, if you trust the scientist to the extent that I trust any scientist, it's just overwhelming that radiometric dating works, and the Earth is an awful lot older than 6,000 years. One final comment I want to make with regard to radiometric dating. As I mentioned to you, I'm an evolutionary biologist, a geneticist. I'm not a geophysicist. Kent is a science educator. His degree is in science education. To my knowledge, he does not publish scientific papers. Is that right? Do you publish scientific papers? Do you work in the laboratory, or?
Your question is, have I published scientific papers?
Yeah. Do you work in the laboratory? Have you?
Oh, no, sir, no.
Yeah. In my case, if you